So what is your job and what does a typical day-to-day look like?
So high school teacher,
Yeah.
social studies and English, but I only have one English class, which is journalism. And then I teach mostly ninth grade and then some electives, so criminology and social problems. Typical day, well, you teach those classes, but a typical day is kind of depends on where the class is, what we're doing. Are they working on something? Is there assignment, a test? Are we talking about something? Are they doing something? So it kind of, there's a lot of varying or variation in my day. I mean, I know what classes, what hours, but then it's up to me to decide, okay, what are we doing that day? What do they need to accomplish? So.
Alrighty. What are the biggest challenges you faced with this job?
I think because you're dealing with people, it's always different. So you're interacting with people constantly.
Yeah.
And the people aren't adults. So sometimes students make bad decisions or poor decisions. So you navigating that in a way to help kids be successful. Sometimes they need consequences. Other times they're having a bad day. And so you have to be able to navigate that. And it really comes down to building relationships with your students, that you know something about them, that they trust you, that they know that they can rely on you as a teacher. So I think that it's a challenge in the sense that you never know what's going to happen maybe, but as you get to be more and more of a veteran teacher, you just kind of know how to deal with people. How to interact with them. I think the other thing is fatigue. It's a job that's not physical, but it's extremely physical, that I'm using my brain all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they had a study, and I don't know, teachers make thousands of decisions a day, and those decisions because you're dealing with people, every one of those decisions is an important decision. It's not like, am I going and getting, coffee and am I putting creamer in it? It's like, okay, this kid came in late. Is it his first time, 12th time? Well, there's consequence. And so there's lots of decision making that can get fatiguing. Mm-hmm. But it's also, I think, why we went into teaching. We want to work with students, right?
Are there any specific subjects or courses you would recommend studying in high school or college?
It's a little bit hard to take classes in high school because there's none that are like directed for teaching, right? But if you're interested in a subject area, like I really like math, well, take lots of math classes because, so high school, maybe not courses, but you can go and work with kids. Mm-hmm. Go and work with an elementary class. Volunteer with a teacher and TA. Yeah. So there's ways that you can see if you really like working with young people. Like Carly Blevins did that last year. I remember she was going to Bayview and Pike, I think. Mm-hmm. I know she was going to one of them. In college then, you have to do the subject area, right? So in high school, whatever your subject is going to be, if you're an elementary teacher, you have to take all the subjects because you teach them all. But it's a different focus. And then in college, there's a whole slew of classes that are just education-based classes. So classroom management, special education, reading for juveniles, to brain science. So there's lots of courses in college then that you take that are supposed to help you how to do lesson planning and unit planning.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool. Are there any internships or entry-level opportunities for getting into this career?
So the volunteering,
yeah.
Working, and that can be in schools, that can be church youth groups, it can be the YMCA, it can be, there's lots of places, it can be daycares, it kind of depends on what level you want to work with, but then just going and working with kids. A lot of times, like if somebody is thinking about education and they're like, kind of thinking, I might want to coach. Go coach, and let's say they were a hockey player, yeah, and you're interested in being a teacher, maybe coaching. Go coach squirts. Be with those kids and learn how to do that. So anytime you can, there's lots of opportunities. They're not like go do this, but there's lots of opportunities where you can kind of tap into that.
How has your career path like changed over time?
So I wasn't going to go into teaching right away, although I was interested in it right away. So I went into college and I was going to be a teacher, and then I wasn't. And then a typical freshman, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what my major was going to be. And then I decided I had taken all my general education classes, so all my generals are done.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to have a major. And I didn't want to drop out of college. So I said, I'm just going to register for my next semester and take just classes that look interesting to me, that I want to take because I'm interested, not because I have to. I ended up with 4 history classes and a communications class. And I'm like, well, that's kind of, doesn't surprise me, but kind of obvious. So I declared as a history major, but not teaching, just straight history. And then I needed a minor, and I found out that to get a minor, I needed like 1 or 2 more classes to get another major. So I just double majored in English then too. So I went through, I got my bachelor's degree in history and English. And at the time, right after college, I was working for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I was a hazardous waste person. So I went around, did technical assistance and did like complaint inspections. I have no idea how I got that with an English and history degree, but I did. And I did that for a little while. And then they were going to lay me off. There were budget cuts in the state. And in the process of doing that job, I had gone into some classrooms, science rooms, that had been asked to come in as a speaker and talk about hazardous waste and our landfills and all that. And I loved it. I loved being in that environment. I loved working with that age group. So that's when I got laid off, then I'm like, yeah, I'd probably, even if I hadn't been laid off, I would have quit. I knew at that point I wanted to go into education. So that's what I did. So then I taught at a small school for 6 years up in Floodwood, and then I got hired here. So.
Are there any like emerging trends in your industry which might affect future jobs in your career, like kids going online or stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm old enough to have seen a lot of changes already.
Yeah.
So when I first started in education, the internet was there, but nobody used it because it wasn't the internet we have now. Yeah. So like I would go and research the Vietnam War. I get 2 paragraphs. You just didn't use it. There's no online grading. Everything was very paper and textbook heavy. So I've seen that evolution now to where we have AI. I mean, so you think about those changes, they're like massive changes in education. And I would say they're good changes. The next thing I think is a la carte education, where people can take a class here, they can take a class online, they can do PSEO. Mm-hmm. And so as schools, we're having these conversations right now, how do we manage that? I'm probably really weird that the COVID shutdown, like doing the online COVID teaching, I didn't mind it. Yeah. I would much rather be in a classroom with students, right? But the way I structure my classes, it was an easy transition for me. All my stuff was already there. So the online piece doesn't scare me. It's just we have to think about education differently. The other thing, and it's kind of a political thing, but public education is under attack. Mm-hmm. And a la carte education is part of that. That choice for students is great, but that choice then has to be fair for everybody. Whereas a private school, they can pick and choose who they let in. Yeah. And then when you point to them as a better school, that's not a fair comparison. And so that attack has been happening for a long time. But public education is designed so everybody has the equal chance. And I think that's really important. Yeah. And I hope that never goes away. I think as schools, we're going to have to figure out the a la carte piece. We're going to have to offer online classes. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to. And that's good. That's a good thing. That doesn't scare me. But those are the 2 things that I think are the biggest challenges.
Yeah. Do you work independently, part of the team, or both?
Both. Yeah, both. So I'm responsible for my classes, but then if I'm teaching the same course as somebody else, we have to match up with standards and things. So that's teamwork. And then our department, we have to work together as a department. So social studies, like who's teaching what. My department has, I would say, been pretty good about that. We work really well together. Everybody is teaching the courses they want to, or kind of our expertise. So yeah, I'm on my own a lot, but there's always support. There's always people you're working with too.
What is the work culture like in your career?
So that's going to really depend on the school that you're in or where you're at, just like any job, right?
Yeah.
I think I've worked in enough places in different schools and settings and things that Proctor's unique in the sense that we're known for, and I think it's accurate, the student or the teachers, so people I work with, I think they're, for the most part, have a pretty deep caring for kids. We really care we want people to be successful, and people can feel that. Do we want them to do well in our topics and our subjects? Sure, right? Yeah, absolutely. I'm using history to teach kids.
Yeah.
And that means to be good people, to, be functioning members of our society. And so that to me is something unique. I think other schools have that, but ours is, I have student teachers. I have lots of student teachers that have come through. I would say, if it's not 100%, it's like one person that hasn't said this. They come in and say, this place is different. You look at kids differently here, that you care about kids. And they can feel that. They also say that the kids at Proctor are different. They act differently. They're nice kids. I'll stand at the end of my door at the end of a class where I get told thank you routinely by students. That's not normal. Most schools don't have that. So to me, that's why I love it here. I bleed green. I love this place because of that, because of those relationships with teachers and students and the community. I would not, you couldn't pull me out of this place.
That's really sweet. So what inspired you overall to choose this career?
So I think the best way is, so we had the AD position came up recently. And so I had some people say, are you going to apply and whatever? And I thought about it, but then, and the AD does affect students' lives. They interact with kids. They do have an impact, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very different impact than a coach or a teacher who have direct daily contact with students. And I didn't want to give that up. I thought to myself, where can I potentially have the most impact on kids' lives? And that's teaching and coaching. And I love my subject area. I'm a history nerd. Most people don't like history, and that's okay, but I love teaching kids. There's something almost addictive about when you see those light bulbs go on, when they're like, whoa. Yeah. Or in coaching, where you're teaching those skills, and whether they're the first place or last place is irrelevant to me, but they're achieving or striving to achieve, to be better than they were yesterday. And there's nothing like watching that happen. It's such a cool experience, because then you see them go and do other things. And then I'm getting students of students now. And that, watching people come and say, yeah, I remember whatever. That it's a career that can rip your heart out, and it can really, you lose students, there's tough stuff you deal with. There's, I suppose, trauma. I don't know, it's kind of strong, but I've dealt with some really, really bad things with kids, when they come to you. But that's also part of the reason I do it, is that they need somebody. Yeah. So yeah, that's what keeps me going, for sure.
Are there any books or podcasts or any other resources that helped you get interested?
Well, when I was first doing that, there was no such thing as a podcast. But there are podcasts out there now that are teacher-based. There's one called the Teachers Comedy Tour, I think. They're a bunch of ex-teachers that are comedians now, and they go around doing comedy skits about education. It's hilarious.
I think my mom's seen that.
Yeah. They're funny, and it's based in reality. There are some podcasts out there too. the challenge with that is to find the ones that aren't super negative about public education, because those are out there too.
Yeah.
As far as books, well, there's one famous one that was called Teacher Man. Frank McCourt. He wrote Angela's Ashes, and he kind of stumbled into education. It's an interesting book. I don't know if it's inspiring, but it's interesting. But there's lots of education books out there too. So.
And then, what is the most surprising thing about your job that you did not expect, like coming in?
Well, I grew up with a teacher, so I had probably a better handle because I saw it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can say anything surprising. Are there things that I don't know. I'm probably weird because I'm here super early in the morning. I stay late. I live at this place. So I don't know if surprising. That's a good question. I've been doing it too long for much to surprise me anymore. I mean, there's always, I tell this to Mr. Roweeder when we're dealing with something, and I go, well, that wasn't on my bingo card.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that you just never anticipate.
Yeah.
I mean, did I think I'd ever have a student come up to me one time and say, hey, I made some bad choices. I need to get an HIV test. How do I do that? I did not anticipate having to figure that out and help that student and find the resource, and that she came up negative, which was good, or he came up negative. But those maybe are surprising, that you just never know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So.
Overall, like through your whole life, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Oh. So there's several, but I think the one that pops into my head is my grandpa used to say this all the time. And he was so faith's really important in my family to me. And so he was a pastor. And so he did a lot of preaching and things. And one of the things he said was that there's this plan, there's this path for you, but sometimes you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
He said, so if you have all these doors in front of you, you have to try them. Sometimes the door will get shut in your face, and that tells you don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Other times the door is going to open that you never anticipated. And so being willing to walk through the door and take a risk, like a long time ago, Mr. Roweeder and Brad Vietz, who's not here anymore, he's at Cirrus now, but they came and said, we need a football coach. I'm like, I haven't played football in 15 years. I was not something I ever thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
But they really, really, really wanted it. We would really like it. Think about it. And I took a risk. I said, what the heck, I'll try it. I ended up doing it for 10 years. Loved every minute of it. So I think that's the thing I would tell people, is that don't get locked into one way of doing things. I don't, because I get bored.
Yeah.
And so try new things, look at things differently, like AI. I'm trying AI in my classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
How can I use it? That's fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, try. There's a path there, and be willing to try the door, I guess.